There's a rhythm to it now. I don't plan the nights. I don't mark it on a calendar or think, yeah, tonight's the night. It just happens. Usually after a normal evening. Dinner together, maybe a show, maybe we scroll on our phones side by side without really talking. Then we go to bed. She falls asleep first almost every time. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. Sometimes I think maybe I won't go. Maybe I'll just sleep like a normal person. But then that feeling creeps in. Not guilt, not even excitement exactly. Just this pull, like something small but important is waiting for me out there. So I get up. Every time it feels a little strange, like I'm sneaking out even though there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I'm not lying to her in some big, serious way. I'm not doing anything that would hurt her. Still, I move carefully. The floorboards near the bed creak if you step wrong. I've learned exactly where to place my feet. I hold my breath when I reach for the door, just in case the latch clicks too loud. It's almost funny how precise I've become. Like this tiny routine has its own set of rules. Once I'm outside, though, that feeling disappears. It's replaced with something lighter. Freedom, maybe. Not the dramatic kind, not like running away or escaping your life. Just a small pocket of time where no one needs anything from me. Where I don't have to respond, explain, or even think too much. The drive is always the same. Empty roads, a few traffic lights blinking yellow, the occasional car passing by like a ghost. I don't turn on music most nights. I just drive in silence, hands on the wheel, watching the road stretch out ahead of me. It feels longer than 10 minutes. In a good way. Like time slows down just enough to let me settle into it. By the time I pull into the diner parking lot, I already feel different than I did back in bed. More present. Inside, it's the same as always, but never boring. That's the weird thing. I mean, I still ordered the same thing most nights. Scrambled eggs, bacon, pancakes, coffee. But that wasn't really why I was going anymore. It became something else. Something quieter, more necessary. I started to notice that the nights I went to the diner were usually the nights where something felt slightly off. Not in a big, obvious way. Nothing dramatic, no arguments, no major stress. Just small things. The kind you don't talk about because they don't seem important enough. Like when the day feels too full, even if nothing big happened. Or when conversations feel rushed, like you're both talking but not really connecting. Or when everything is fine, but also a little too repetitive. Those are the nights it pulls me the most. I'll be lying in bed next to her, staring into the dark, and I can feel it building, that quiet restlessness. Not dissatisfaction, just a need for space. And I think that's what this really is. Space. Not distance from her, but distance from everything for a little while. From routines, expectations, even from myself in a weird way. Because when I'm sitting at that counter, I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm not replaying conversations or planning anything ahead. I'm just there. And that's rare. One night stands out more than the others. It was raining. Not heavy, dramatic rain, just a steady, quiet kind that makes everything feel slower. The roads were wet, reflecting the streetlights in long, stretched lines. The whole drive felt softer, somehow. I almost didn't go that night. Something about the rain made it feel easier to just stay in bed, to let the sound of it fill the room and fall asleep. But that same pull was there, stronger than usual. So I went. The diner looked different in the rain. The neon sign blurred slightly through the wet glass, glowing in that hazy way that makes everything feel a little unreal. There was only one other car in the parking lot. Inside, it was even quieter than usual. The kind of quiet where every small sound stands out. The tap of utensils, the low sizzle from the kitchen, the soft hum of the lights overhead. I sat at the counter like always. The waitress gave me the same nod. No words, just recognition. But that night there was something different. Not in a big way, just a slight shift in the atmosphere, like everything had slowed down even more than usual. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug and just sat there, longer than I normally would. I didn't even order right away. I just listened. To the rain hitting the windows, to the quiet inside, to nothing, really. And for the first time, I realized something. This place wasn't just quiet. It held the quiet, like it was built for it, like all the noise of the outside world just stopped at the door. When my food came, I ate slower than I ever had before, not because I was trying to stretch the moment, but because there was no reason not to. Time didn't feel like it mattered there. At some point, I noticed the other person in the diner, a woman, sitting in a booth by the window. She wasn't on her phone, wasn't eating, just staring out at the rain, like she'd been there a long time. We didn't look at each other, didn't acknowledge each other at all. But again, it didn't feel strange. It felt understood, like we were both there for the same unspoken reason. Not to escape something specific, just to exist somewhere quiet for a little while. That night stayed with me, more than the others, because it made me realize this wasn't just a random habit anymore. It had meaning. Not a big, life-changing meaning, but a steady, grounding kind, like a reset button I didn't know I needed. When I got back home that night, I stood by the bed for a second before getting in. She was asleep, like always, peaceful, unaware. And I felt this brief flicker of something I hadn't really felt before. Not guilt exactly, but a question. Why haven't I told her? It would be so easy. Hey, sometimes I go to this diner at night when I can't sleep. That's it. No big secret, no drama. She'd probably just smile and say, "That's kind of cute," or, "Next time, wake me up, I'll come with you." And that thought, that's what stopped me. Because if she came with me, it would change everything. Not in a bad way, just completely. There would be conversation, shared glances, decisions about what to order, maybe even laughter. It would turn into something we do together. And I don't want that. Not for this. This isn't about connection. It's about solitude. About having one place, one moment in my week where I don't have to share anything at all. No thoughts, no words, no version of myself for someone else. Just me, sitting at a counter, eating in silence. And maybe that sounds selfish, maybe it is, but I think everyone needs something like that. A small piece of life that belongs only to them. When I finally got back into bed, she shifted slightly, half asleep, and rested her arm across me without waking up. Just instinct, just closeness. And I stayed there staring into the dark again. But this time, I wasn't restless. I felt settled. Like I had gone somewhere I needed to go, even if I didn't fully understand why. And that's when I knew. This wasn't going to stop. At some point, it stopped feeling like I was sneaking out. It started feeling like I was stepping into something familiar. Like slipping into a routine that existed just outside the rest of my life. The nights I went to the diner didn't feel random anymore. I could almost predict them. Not by the day, but by the feeling. It would start sometime in the evening, subtle at first. A kind of mental noise. Not stress exactly, not even worry, just clutter. Too many thoughts, too many small things stacking on top of each other. Normal life stuff. Work, conversations, plans, things I said, things I didn't say. Nothing serious enough to talk about, but enough to feel it. That's when I knew. I'd be going that night. I wouldn't say anything. We'd go through the usual routine, Dinner, maybe a show, maybe just sitting together in that comfortable silence couples fall into after a while. Then bed, then the waiting. And it's funny because now I don't just wait for her to fall asleep. I listen. There's a difference. At first, I used to watch, making sure she was fully asleep. Now I can tell just by the rhythm of her breathing. The way it evens out, slows down, settles into that steady pattern. That's my signal. That's when I move. It's almost automatic now. Hoodie, shoes, keys, quiet steps, careful movements, the same path every time, like muscle memory has taken over. But instead of feeling sneaky, it feels intentional, like I'm choosing something for myself. The drive feels different now too, less like I'm heading somewhere unknown, more like I'm returning to a place that's been waiting for me. There's comfort in that. The same empty roads, the same flickering lights, the same quiet that wraps around everything once the rest of the world goes to sleep. Sometimes I notice things I've never seen before. A porch light that's always on. A stray cat crossing the same street. A car parked in the same spot night after night, like it belongs more to the darkness than the daytime. It's like there's a whole version of the world that only exists at this hour, and I'm slowly becoming part of it. The diner, though, that's the center of it all. By now, I don't hesitate when I walk in. The bell rings, and instead of feeling like I've entered somewhere unfamiliar, it feels like I have arrived. There's a difference. I don't even think about where to sit anymore. Same stool, same spot at the counter. And the waitress, she knows. Not in a personal way. We still don't talk beyond what's necessary, but there's recognition there now. A quiet understanding. She doesn't ask what I want anymore. She just brings the coffee. And waits. That small detail means more than it should. It means I belong there, at least a little. The first time she didn't ask for my order, I noticed it immediately. She set the coffee down, gave a slight nod, and moved on. No words. And for some reason, that felt right. Like anything more would have broken the balance of the place. I still order the same thing most nights, but sometimes I switch it up. Not because I want something different, but because I can. There's no expectation, no routine I have to follow. This isn't about consistency. It's about freedom, even in small choices. One night, I ordered just pancakes and coffee. Another night, just eggs and toast. And once, for no real reason, I ordered way more than I could eat. Just to see what it felt like. No one questioned it. No one cared. That's the beauty of it. You can exist however you want in that space, and it doesn't ripple out into anything else. It doesn't define you. It doesn't follow you home. It just stays there. I've also started noticing how time works differently when I'm there. At home, everything feels structured. Even relaxing has a kind of schedule. Watch something, scroll for a bit, go to bed. Here, time stretches. Sometimes I feel like I've been sitting there for hours, and when I check the clock, it's only been 20 minutes. Other times it feels like I just sat down and suddenly it's 2 a.m. It doesn't make sense, but I've stopped trying to measure it. That's not the point. The point is how it feels while I'm there. Unrushed, unclaimed, completely my own. One night, something small happened that stuck with me. I had just finished eating, sitting there with my empty plate and half a cup of coffee left. I wasn't in a hurry to leave, but I also wasn't planning to stay much longer. Just existing in that in-between moment. The waitress came over, not to clear the plate, not to ask anything, just to refill my coffee. I hadn't asked for it. She didn't say anything. She just poured it, gave a slight nod, and walked away. And for some reason, that moment hit me, because it felt like she understood something without it being said. That I wasn't done yet. That I wasn't ready to leave. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about being seen, without being pulled into conversation or expectation. That almost never happens anywhere else. Everywhere else, being noticed comes with something attached to it. Small talk, questions, interaction. Here, it doesn't. Here, you can be acknowledged and still left completely alone. And I think that's why I keep coming back. Not just for the silence, but for that specific kind of presence. The kind where you're not invisible, but you're also not required to engage. It's a rare balance. When I leave, it's always the same. I step outside, the air hitting me a little colder than before, like the night has deepened while I was inside. The world is still quiet, still waiting. I get in my car, start the engine, and just sit there for a second, letting that feeling settle. Then I drive home. Same roads, same lights, same calm. But now, there's something else too. A kind of reset. Like whatever noise was in my head before has been turned down. Not gone, just quieter. Manageable. When I get back into bed, it's easier. Everything is. She shifts slightly sometimes, half aware but never fully wakes up. And I lie there staring at the ceiling again. But it's different now. The restlessness is gone, replaced with something steady, something calm. And before I know it, I'm asleep. The more I kept it to myself, the more it started to feel defined. Not bigger, not more dramatic, just clearer, like this quiet line between two versions of my life. There's the version where everything is shared, normal, expected, where we wake up together, talk about our day, plan things, exist side by side like people do when they're close. And then there's this other version. Same life, same person, but just for a couple of hours each week it shifts, slows down, gets quieter, and somehow feels more grounded. I started noticing that the nights after the diner were always better. Not in a huge, life-changing way, just in small, steady ways. I'd wake up feeling more rested, even if I hadn't slept that long. More patient, more present, like whatever I needed from that time alone carried over into everything else. Even she noticed it once. We were having breakfast. Normal morning, sunlight coming through the window, coffee on the table, and she looked at me for a second and said, "You seem in a really good mood today." I shrugged. Tried to play it off like nothing. Just slept well, I guess. She smiled. Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. That stuck with me, because in a way, I was. Just not in a way she knew about. And that's where it started to feel a little more complicated. Not in a heavy way, just in that quiet, thoughtful way where you start to question things without needing immediate answers. Because on one hand, nothing about this was negative. If anything, it made me better, calmer, more balanced, more myself. But on the other hand, it was still something I wasn't sharing. And I think there's always a part of you that notices that, even if you don't feel guilty about it. It just sits there in the background, not loud, just present. One night, I decided to pay more attention to that feeling instead of brushing it off. I was at the diner, sitting in my usual spot, halfway through my food when it crossed my mind again. Why does this matter so much? Not the secrecy, the place, the routine, the feeling. What is it actually giving me? I looked around. Same scene as always. A couple of people scattered around, each in their own world, the quiet hum of everything working in the background, the steady rhythm of a place that doesn't ask anything from you. And then it clicked in a way it hadn't before. It's not just about being alone, it's about being unobserved. That's the difference. At home, even in silence, there's always a subtle awareness of the other person. Not in a bad way, it's part of being close to someone. But it's there, a quiet, constant connection. Here, there's none of that. No one knows me, no one expects anything from me, no one is paying attention in a way that matters. And that creates a kind of freedom that's hard to find anywhere else. A freedom to just exist without context. That realization sat with me for a while, because it explains something I hadn't been able to put into words. Why this felt so necessary. Why I didn't want to share it. Because the moment someone you know enters that space, you're no longer unobserved. Even if nothing changes on the surface, something shifts internally. You become aware again. You become seen. And this place only works because of the opposite. That night, I stayed longer than usual, not because I was trying to hold on to it, but because I was thinking about it more deeply than I ever had before, trying to understand something that until now I had just been feeling. At one point, the waitress came over to clear my plate. She paused for a second, then asked, "You want anything else?" It was one of the few times she'd said more than a single word to me. I shook my head. "No, I'm good." She nodded, took the plate, and walked away. Simple, but it stood out because even that small interaction felt like more than usual, like the boundary had shifted just a little. And it made me realize how delicate this whole thing is, how easily it could change. Not disappear, just become something else. On the drive home that night, I didn't turn on the radio, didn't rush. I just drove slowly, letting everything settle. The empty streets, the soft glow of lights, the quiet that only exists at that hour, it all felt a little more meaningful than usual, like I was seeing it more clearly. When I got home, everything was the same as always. Dark room, quiet house, her asleep in bed. But I paused at the door for a second before going in, not because I was worried, just because I was thinking about how two parts of my life could exist so separately, just minutes apart. Inside that room, shared life, connection, familiarity. Outside, solitude, silence, independence. And somehow, both felt equally important. I slipped back into bed carefully. She shifted slightly, turned towards me, still half asleep. Her hand found mine without her even waking up. Just instinct, just habit. And I held it for a second. That contrast hit me again. This, warm, close, shared, and earlier, quiet, distant, entirely my own. Two completely different experiences, both real, both necessary in their own way. I lay there staring into the dark, feeling that balance settle into place, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I needed to question it. I didn't need to define it beyond what it already was. It didn't have to become anything bigger. It didn't have to be explained. It just had to exist. Quietly, like it always had. And maybe that's the whole point. Not everything in life needs to be shared to be real. Some things just need to be experienced alone. There was a point where I thought about stopping, not because I wanted to, but because I wondered if I should. It wasn't triggered by anything big, no argument, no close call, no sudden guilt. Just one of those quiet moments during the day where a thought slips in and lingers longer than usual. Is this something I should keep doing? I didn't have an answer right away, and that bothered me more than the question itself. Because up until then, everything about it had felt natural, easy, uncomplicated. I didn't overthink it. I just went when I felt like going, and that was it. But now, for the first time, I was stepping back and looking at it from the outside, trying to understand it instead of just experiencing it. That changes things. Later that night, I felt the pull again, that same quiet restlessness, that same sense that something small but important was waiting for me. And for a moment, I hesitated. I lay there next to her, staring into the dark, thinking maybe I'd skip it this time. Just stay, just sleep, just let it go and see what happens. But I already knew, if I didn't go, I'd feel it. Not immediately, not dramatically, but it would be there. A kind of unfinished feeling, like stopping in the middle of something without realizing why. So I went. Same routine, same quiet steps, same careful exit. But this time, there was a layer of awareness that hadn't been there before. I was paying attention to everything a little more closely. The way the night air felt when I stepped outside, the sound of the car door closing, the silence during the drive. It all felt a little sharper, more intentional. When I got to the diner, nothing had changed. Same lights, same counter, same quiet presence of a few scattered people. But I walked in with a different mindset. Not just someone continuing a habit, someone observing it. I sat down, ordered my usual, and waited. And instead of letting my mind go still like it normally does, I watched myself. Not in a strange way, just aware. Aware of why I was there, aware of how it felt, trying to see if it still held the same meaning when I looked at it directly. The food came, and I started eating. Same taste, same comfort, but now I was asking myself questions in the background. Is this still what I need? Or is this just something I've gotten used to? For a few minutes, I couldn't tell the difference. That bothered me more than anything else. Because if it had become just a habit, just something automatic, then maybe it wasn't as meaningful as I thought. Maybe it had lost something without me noticing. I slowed down, put the fork down for a second, took a sip of coffee and just sat there. And that's when it came back, not as a thought, as a feeling. That same quiet stillness, that same sense of everything around me softening, the noise in my head lowering, the world narrowing down to just this moment, this place. It hadn't gone anywhere. I just needed to stop analyzing it long enough to feel it again. And once I did, everything clicked back into place. This wasn't just routine. This wasn't just a habit. It was something I actively chose, even if it felt automatic sometimes. And the fact that I questioned it didn't weaken it. If anything, it made it clearer. I wasn't doing this to escape anything. I wasn't avoiding something at home. I wasn't hiding something dark or complicated. I was just taking time. Time that belonged only to me. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Once I realized that, the rest of the night felt normal again. I finished my food slowly, not rushing, not thinking too much, just being there, the way I always am. At one point, I noticed a couple come in. That was rare. Most of the time, people came alone, but they walked in together, sat at a booth and started talking quietly. Nothing unusual, just normal conversation, but it stood out because it felt out of place. Not wrong, just different from the unspoken rhythm of the place. They laughed softly, shared food, leaned towards each other in that familiar way people do when they're comfortable. And I found it almost slipped out again. Not in some dramatic moment, not during a deep conversation or anything serious, just casually. We were in the car, driving back from getting groceries. Middle of the day, sunlight everywhere, normal traffic, normal noise. The complete opposite of the world I step into at 1 a.m. She was talking about something small, work, I think, and then she paused for a second and said, "You ever notice how different everything feels late at night?" My grip on the steering wheel tightened just a little. "Yeah," I said. She looked out the window as she kept talking. Like the same places don't even feel the same. It's quieter, obviously, but it's more than that. It's like, I don't know, like the world slows down or something. I nodded. Exactly. And again, just like before, there it was. The opening. The easiest, most natural chance to say it. To just tell her. I actually go out sometimes at night. There's this diner. That's all it would have taken. But I didn't. I let the moment pass. She moved on to another topic, and the conversation kept going like nothing happened. But I felt it linger. Not regret, just awareness. Because now it had happened twice. 2 perfect moments were telling her would have been effortless, and twice I chose not to. That says something. I just wasn't sure what exactly. That night, I didn't go to the diner. Not because I decided to stop, but because I wanted to see what it felt like not to. To break the pattern on purpose. To understand it better. At first, it was fine. We went to bed like usual. She fell asleep. The room got quiet. Everything settled into that familiar stillness. And I stayed. I didn't move. I didn't reach for my hoodie and my keys. I just lay there. Waiting. At first, nothing felt different. But then, slowly, that feeling started to build again. that quiet restlessness, that sense that something was missing, not in a big, dramatic way, just subtly, like skipping a step in a routine your body has gotten used to. I turned over, adjusted the pillow, closed my eyes, tried to ignore it, tried to let sleep come naturally. But it didn't. Not easily. My mind wasn't racing, it just wasn't settling. And I knew why. Because I hadn't given it that space, that reset, that time to slow down in a way nothing else really allows. I stayed in bed anyway. Told myself it didn't matter, that it was just a habit, and habits can be broken. But it didn't feel like breaking something, it felt like denying something. And that's a different kind of feeling. Eventually, I fell asleep, but it took longer. And the next morning, I noticed the difference. Again, nothing huge, just slightly off. A little more tired, a little less patient, a little more caught up in the noise of everything. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she didn't say anything. The day went on like any other. But I felt it. That missing piece. That quiet clarity I usually carry with me after those nights. It wasn't there. And that answered something for me, more clearly than any thinking or questioning could. This wasn't just a habit. It was something that actually affected me. Something that changed how I showed up in the rest of my life. Not dramatically, just enough to matter. That night when the feeling came back again, I didn't hesitate. I didn't question it. I didn't analyze it. I just went. And the moment I stepped outside, I felt it. That immediate shift. Like my body recognized something my mind had been trying to overcomplicate. The drive felt smoother. The diner felt exactly the way it always does. And when I sat down at the counter, coffee in front of me, that quiet settling in around me, it was obvious. This is what I needed. Not every night, not constantly, but enough. Enough to keep things balanced. Enough to give me that small piece of something that belongs only to me. At one point during that visit, I caught myself smiling slightly. For no real reason, just a quiet, almost unnoticeable moment. And I realized something simple. I wasn't hiding this because I was afraid to share it. I was keeping it because it gave me something I didn't want to lose. That's different. Very different. When I left that night, I didn't feel conflicted anymore. I didn't feel like I was avoiding a conversation. I didn't feel like I was keeping a secret in a negative way. I just felt certain. Certain that not everything needs to be turned into something shared. That it's okay to have small, quiet parts of your life that exist only for you. As long as they don't take away from anything else. And this didn't. If anything, it added something. When I got home and slipped back into bed, she turned slightly towards me again, still asleep. That familiar movement, that quiet closeness. And I lay there, staring into the dark, feeling that balance again.